Hey everyone, and welcome to what is hopefully going to be a very informative video on how to create your best personal statement for medical school. My name is Savik Goswami, and I'm a career advisor at the Pomerantz Career Center. To help me discuss personal statements, I'm joined by two admission representatives from the University of Iowa Carver College of Medicine. Before we jump into the video, can you two introduce yourselves to our viewers?
Sure. My name is Megan Kozowski.
Hi, and I'm Rachel Ahern. Megan and I are, as Savik mentioned, we are actually admissions counselors with the Carver College of Medicine. So part of our job is to help students who are interested in applying to medical school and kind of help them prepare through that process. And writing personal statements is certainly one of those things that we help with.
Awesome. So for this video, we will run through some frequently asked questions that we get from students when they are writing their personal statements. We hope to give you all an opportunity to hear tips and advice directly from Rachel and Megan throughout this video. So to begin, let's start with the basics. What should a personal statement include?
Great question, Savik. And we get this question all the time. We love helping students as they kind of struggle through this. But I think it's just helpful to remember why we want to know this information in the first place. And we want to understand why it is you want to be a physician. That's what our admissions committee wants to know. So why do you want to be a physician? We want to hear your story, hear your voice, and get a glimpse into who you are and what motivates you. Okay, so you have to keep in mind you only have about a page to get this done, 5,300 characters. So before you know it, you'll have 5,300 characters. So it means you need to be pretty mindful about what you actually want to include. You can't include everything. Think about powerful, impactful experiences you've had that have helped you understand why you want to go into medicine. And that's what you'll want to focus on during this statement. As you're writing it, don't think about, does this sound good? But instead, does this communicate why I want to be a physician? Really get in touch with what it is, why you're applying to school, what's motivating you and keeping you going here. What do you think, Rachel? Are there other things that you would add in?
Absolutely. I mean, we often advise students when we're talking to them about applying and writing personal statements is, especially throughout the application process, when you have the opportunity to actually write or share your own words, that means that that's a really important opportunity for the committee to hear directly from you because they never get to meet you in person. And so when you have the chance to actually share your writing, you just want to make sure that it's clear and concise and that you're getting your motivation for pursuing medicine across, just like Megan said.
Yeah, I think one great thing that you all brought up with your answers is that it can only be a page. So knowing that it can only be a page, what are some things that you should for sure avoid writing in your personal statement?
Yeah, another great question. So, just like Megan mentioned in wanting it to kind of tell the story of your path to medicine, something to kind of avoid while you're telling this story is your personal statement reading like your resume would read. There's going to be other points in the application where you get to share all of the experiences that you've done and the things that have helped you to discover why you want to be a physician. So the committee will get to read those things about you later on. And it's not necessarily that you shouldn't mention those things, but it's more about telling a story and helping them hear your narrative than it is to kind of list all the things that you've done and have it read like a resume. Other things to avoid are kind of worded a little bit differently, but we kind of classify them as cliches or things that, you think the committee wants to hear. So for example, we read personal statements where we'll say, well, I've wanted to be a physician for my entire life. Right? And so you just want to be specific and kind of avoid cliche things that you think the committee would want to hear. You want to tell your story that is unique to you and how you've gotten to this path. And not everyone knew they wanted to be a doctor their whole life. So stay true to your story, avoid those cliches as you work through that. Also kind of along those lines, you also want to avoid being kind of overly general. So you want to be specific. And while you have very limited characters that you can share, you want to make sure that you are being detailed in your writing. But also on the flip side of that, you don't want to be too overly dramatic. And so you just want to make sure that if you're telling a story or a specific experience that you've had, that you're being honest and you're being clear and concise in your patient interaction or your interaction with a physician or whatever that was, to make sure that your story is truthful and believable and, really just being honest about what you've learned. Kind of the last thing to avoid, which maybe seems kind of obvious, is just avoiding spelling and grammar errors and making sure that your sentence structures are concise and clear and, running the way that you want them to. This can be noticeable for the committee. They read personal statements and they notice when there are spelling and grammar errors. And basically, you just don't want to come off careless to them or that you haven't read your personal statement. And like we said earlier, this is a chance for you to share your own words. So you want to make sure that that's coming off on the right note and that you have taken the time to read through your writing and make sure it's the way that you want it to be. Megan, do you have anything else to add for any of those avoidances?
Yeah, I think those are all really great points. Just to tack on to a couple of things that you said, and make sure to break your personal statement up into at least a few paragraphs, a couple paragraphs, a few paragraphs, something that shows that you're a good communicator. Because to be a good physician, you really do need to be a good communicator. So this is your opportunity to let that shine. Don't turn in just one paragraph that really shows no sense of organization. So figure out where those breaking points are. And I think something else that's important to keep in mind is that the goal of this is to help the admissions committee get to know you. So you don't want to put distance between you and the committee. And just like Rachel was saying, if you use cliches or overgeneralizations, that can do that. So it feels cold and not like we're getting to know you. So from the beginning of time, healthcare has always been important. That says nothing about you. We see it all the time, right? So take that sentence out, right? And then get back to why this matters to you. So just make sure you're trying to communicate your passion to the committee, not these overgeneralizations that you think we want to hear.
So this next question we get a lot on the advising side, and that is, how much should a student disclose on a personal statement? So for example, should an applicant talk about mental health, abuse, or mention of bad grades? I'm curious what the take is on that.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, and that's totally appropriate to ask. So I think one thing that can really help students here is if they go through the AMCAS application itself. Try to familiarize yourself with the different sections of the application, because you might have a place that's a little bit more appropriate to answer that or include that information. You certainly don't want to hide something, but you have to think about, does this piece of information help the committee understand why I want to be a physician? And if it doesn't, then I think there's a better spot for it. And we could help advise where a better place might be. It depends what the situation is. But for instance, there are several places you could talk about bad grades or things that you've overcome that contribute to your story, but might not necessarily contribute to why you want to be a physician. So I think that's something that your advisors can help you through, or we can help as well if you have a question. But make sure it really does link into why you want to be a physician.
So as we kind of wrap up our conversations around personal statements, I'm curious if you can share a couple final tips when it comes to writing a personal statement.
Absolutely. We have a few more tips for you just to kind of piggyback off of everything that has been said so far. One of the really solid pieces of advice that we talk to applicants about all the time is keeping a journal. And, as you are preparing to apply to medical school and as you're gaining and experiencing all of these different opportunities as you work towards applying, make sure that you're taking the time to reflect on those things and journal about them. And, we see within applicants that that's really helpful, because when it comes time to actually write your personal statement or fill out your application, that you're not having to rack your brain about what you took away from that particular experience or what was something that was impactful to you. When you're journaling and really doing that reflection as you go, it's a lot clearer to you when the time comes and you're able to write about those experiences in a lot more detail when you do that reflection ahead of time. Other helpful tips are just to, multiple drafts and do some writing, put some things on paper, type some things out, and then step away and come back to it. You're certainly not expected to crank out a personal statement and have it be perfect the first time, and it likely won't be, and that's okay. You want to put some time and effort into this. And as far as how long it takes you to write your personal statement, that's entirely unique and up to each and every person. But we certainly want you to start early with the process, and we want you to make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to reflect and to write multiple drafts and to really feel good about it and not feel like you're rushed when it comes down to crunch time for applying. So while you're going through this editing process, it's also helpful to have multiple people read your personal statement. And this can include people who know you well and who understand you and understand why you want to go to medical school so that they can help you through this editing process. Maybe they're able to help you on some of those spelling and grammatical things too, just to get another set of eyes on it. So taking time to edit and write multiple drafts and get the input from multiple people can be helpful too. And just kind of going back to the very beginning and what Megan said is really thinking about the question of why we make you do this and why this is part of the medical school application process. The rigor and the commitment of applying to medical school is difficult, and so you want to make sure that you have put all your thoughts on paper and your intentions for why you're pursuing this journey. And writing a personal statement can be really helpful in helping you to obviously articulate that, but help you to determine within yourself that, yeah, this is what I want to do. And this is the path and the commitment that I'm going to make for the next multiple years going into medical school and committing to that journey. So there is a purpose and there is a reason for why we want to write a personal statement and why our committee really finds value in reading those, because it helps them to get to know you, but it also helps to solidify within yourself why you're committing to this journey and why you want to go to medical school.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for those final tips. Those are extremely helpful even for me as an advisor to hear those. So hopefully, that can provide all of our viewers today with some of their tips, some tips as you work through your personal statement. And as exactly what Rachel mentioned, on campus, you have a multitude of different resources ranging from the writing center to various classes. And then obviously all of us advisors, we're all here to help. So do not feel alone with this process. So that wraps up today's video. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the video. And if you have any questions that we didn't cover or other thoughts that you have, feel free to use the comment section below, and we'll be sure to address those through email or individual messages too. So that wraps up our video today. Thank you, Megan and Rachel, for joining us. Have a great rest of your day, everyone, and go Hawks. Bye.